There's a man whose name you almost certainly don't know. But his decisions have shaped nearly every building you've worked in, every bridge you've crossed, and the very framework of the city you call home. He doesn't run a tech company. His face isn't on magazine covers. In a world where billionaires compete for attention, he makes steel. And that quiet anonymity was a deliberate choice. His name is Lakshmi Mittal. And today, I'm talking about the story of the Steel King, the man who secretly constructed the modern world while everyone was looking the other way. To understand how Mittal built his empire, you first need to understand where he came from. He was born in 1950 in a small village in India, a country that had only just gained independence. The environment was tough. Poverty was widespread, and for an ambitious young man, opportunities were scarce. His family was in the steel business. His father ran a small local mill. From his earliest days, Mittal didn't just see steel. He saw a system, a fractured, inefficient one, waiting for a new vision. He had a gift for understanding complex finance. Numbers just came easily to him. But at the time, India was stuck in what's known as the license Raj. The government controlled almost everything, from what you could produce to how much you could charge. Talent mattered far less than connections. For a young Mittal, this environment was suffocating. He knew that if he wanted to build something truly big, he had to look beyond India's borders. The opportunity came in 1976. The family had invested in land in Indonesia to build a steel plant. But the project had failed. Permits were denied and the electricity was cut off. Mittal was sent with a simple order: sell the land and bring the cash back home. But Lakshmi had other ideas. Once he got there, he refused to sell. He studied the market and drew up a plan to revive the abandoned project. But there was a problem. Mittal had no money, and India's strict laws blocked him from moving capital abroad. So he found a clever legal workaround. He used a government export scheme that allowed him to buy machinery in India and export it to Indonesia, with the state lending him up to 85% of the cost. He sweet-talked Indonesian officials about job creation and technology transfer, and he got the permits he needed. He launched PT Ispat Indo, his first independent steel mill. This wasn't just a new company. It was the birth of his playbook. His strategy was to buy broken mills and rebuild them stronger. While the world's steel industry was a patchwork of state-owned, inefficient national champions, Mittal went hunting for the ones nobody else would touch. He targeted failing plants in Trinidad, struggling mills in Mexico, and post-Soviet behemoths in Kazakhstan. Other industrialists saw them as money pits. Mittal saw bargains. He would swoop in, apply a ruthless formula, and turn them around. He wasn't inventing a new way to make steel. He was inventing a new way to run a steel business. Now, this sounds smart on paper, but for many his methods were brutal. He slashed costs and streamlined management, prioritizing financial optimization over people. He was called a predator who fed on the weak. But to the governments desperate to save their failing industries, he was often seen as the only man for the job. With every acquisition, his empire grew, and his influence deepened, becoming the invisible foundation of a rapidly globalizing world. By the mid-2000s, Mittal was the head of a global titan, Mittal Steel. Yet, in the gilded halls of European industry, he was still seen as an outsider, the head of a company of Indians, as one rival scornfully put it. The old guard, the legacy steelmakers of Europe, remained untouchable. At the pinnacle was Arcelor, a symbol of European industrial pride formed from the steel champions of France, Spain, and Luxembourg. It was profitable, powerful, and deeply connected to the political establishment. Its CEO, Guy Dole, once sneered that his company was perfume compared to Mittal's eau de cologne. In January 2006, Mittal launched a hostile takeover bid for Arcelor, valued at a staggering $22.7 billion. It was a declaration of war. The European establishment reacted with fury. The French finance minister accused Mittal of having a grammar problem for daring to launch an unsolicited bid. The press painted him as a corporate raider from the East. Arcelor's board fought back. They deployed a poison pill to make the company impossible to acquire and went searching for a white knight, a friendlier company to merge with. They found one in a Russian oligarch, arranging a deal to merge with Russia's Severstal. For a moment, it looked like Mittal was defeated. But in his rush to block Mittal, Dole had made a fatal error. The terms he offered the Russians were far less favorable to his own shareholders than Mittal's deal. Mittal's team saw the opening and went on the offensive, appealing directly to Arcelor's shareholders. The argument was simple. Who do you trust to deliver more value? The entrenched executive who called a rival's offer monkey money, or the man who built a global empire from nothing? Shareholders began to revolt. Faced with a rebellion from his own investors, Dole's position collapsed. Mittal sweetened his offer one last time to an eye-watering $33.4 billion. On June 25, 2006, the Arcelor board capitulated. The new company, ArcelorMittal, was the undisputed largest steel producer on Earth, controlling roughly 10% of global steel production. The outsider from Rajasthan hadn't just joined the club. He'd bought it and rebuilt it in his own image. Winning the war cemented Mittal's legacy. But seizing the crown is one thing. Holding on to it is another. Suddenly, the world's most complex problems were line items on his balance sheet. The first is climate change. Steelmaking is one of the most carbon-intensive industries on the planet, accounting for about 7 to 9% of global emissions. As the world's biggest steelmaker, ArcelorMittal is also one of its biggest polluters. The company has pledged to change, setting an ambitious goal to reach net zero emissions by 2050 and to reduce the carbon intensity of its steel by 25% globally by 2030. The plan involves moving away from coal-fired furnaces toward greener technologies like electric arc furnaces and green hydrogen-based plants. But clearly, there still needs to be a lot more done. The reality of this transition is incredibly complex, with an astronomical price tag and a heavy dependence on new technologies and supportive government policies that are slow to arrive. While Mittal wages a slow war against carbon, a more immediate war has exposed the fragility of his empire. In Ukraine, ArcelorMittal owns the country's largest steel plant, Kryvyi Rih. Since 2022, the plant has become a symbol of resilience, operating just miles from the front lines under the constant threat of attack. But resilience has its limits. The war has caused critical disruptions in power supply and railway logistics, forcing the plant to repeatedly curtail production and suspend operations at its mining and steelmaking facilities. The very global network that gave Mittal his strength had become his greatest vulnerability, a stark reminder that his empire is built on the shifting sands of geopolitics. The challenges facing this hidden empire are immense, from decarbonizing an entire industry to navigating the front lines of a war. It raises a fundamental question. Can a structure built for the 20th century survive the pressures of the 21st? What do you think is the single biggest threat to the world's steel supply? The environment, geopolitics, or something else entirely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. For nearly 45 years, Lakshmi Mittal was the driving force of his company. His personal ambition and his corporate strategy were one and the same. But empires, even industrial ones, can't be ruled by one man forever. The final chapter of his reign is about succession. In 2021, a quiet transition of power took place. Lakshmi Mittal stepped down as CEO, handing the title to his son, Aditya Mittal, whom he had been grooming for the job his entire life.
Aditya, who had been the architect of the arts lore takeover alongside his father, now faces a different challenge. The father's era was about relentless expansion. The son's will be defined by transformation and discipline, future-proofing the empire against the treacherous waters of decarbonization and geopolitical risk. Yet beyond the boardroom, Mittal's true legacy isn't in stock prices. It's in the world he built. His genius was never in invention, but in consolidation. He understood, before almost anyone else, that the steel industry's fragmentation was its greatest weakness. By turning scattered liabilities into a streamlined global network, he fundamentally reshaped modern industry. The steel from his revitalized mills in Kazakhstan became the skeleton of new skyscrapers in Dubai. The coils shipped from his plants in Brazil became the car doors and washing machines in homes across America. He built a circulatory system for the global economy, pumping the iron alloy that makes modern life possible. Every time you cross a bridge or enter an office tower, you are interacting with his legacy. He is the ghost in the machine of the modern city. So the next time you look at a skyline, don't just see the buildings. See the invisible network of steel that holds them up. Think of the man from a desert village in India who saw a disconnected world and decided to wire it together with iron and ambition. Lakshmi Mittal didn't just build a company. He built a system that became the framework of our world. His name isn't on your phone, and you won't see him trending on social media. But he is the man who built your city. And now, you know his name.